I'm slightly creepy. So we're in week number 3 of a series in which we're talking about what it's like to live with a vampire. Not the kind of vampire that you see in the movies with the pale skin and the sharp teeth, but the kind you live with in your home and work with in your office and socialise with on your nights out. Not to put too fine a point on it, we're talking about the people in our lives who suck and how we can learn to cope with them. And this morning we're going to talk specifically about coping with the people in our lives who are unreliable. Anyone get anyone in their life who is slightly unreliable? Okay. Let me kick this off by getting back into my hula hoop. Okay. Last week I said that in each of our lives there's a circle. And there are people in our lives who are very much outside our circle. And there are other people in our lives who are very much inside our circle. Now, when somebody outside your circle is unreliable, it's frustrating. These are the people who, when they say they'll be there at 10 o'clock, what they really mean is 10:30. These are the people who, when they say it will cost $500, what they really mean is $650. These are the people who, when they say a job will take 2 weeks, it ends up taking 2 months. And sadly, I think we're all very used to dealing with that sort of unreliability. And it's exhausting, it's annoying, it's frustrating. That's what unreliability looks like and feels like outside the circle. But when you deal with unreliability inside the circle, when it comes from the people with whom you live, the people in whom you have a heavy emotional investment, it isn't frustrating anymore. It's damaging. It's hurtful. Because inside the circle, you have people saying things like, I can change. Next time it'll be different. I'll spend more time at home. We'll spend more time together. I won't do those things anymore. I promise everything's going to get better. And when you get let down by those people, it isn't just hurtful. It isn't just frustrating, excuse me. It's deeply hurtful. So that's what we're going to talk about this morning. Our text for today comes from a part of the Bible called the Gospel according to St. Matthew. If you don't have a Bible, by the way, next time you stay in a hotel, just steal one. It's not stealing if it's the Bible. God won't mind. He wants you to have it. And the Gospel according to St. Matthew is about Jesus. And Jesus, just like you, had people who were on the outside of his circle. In the course of his day-to-day life, he had a lot of dealings with a lot of people. Some of those people were all right, some of them sucked. That's life. However, Jesus, just like you, also had an inner circle. 12 friends. For 3 years he lived, he worked, he travelled, he socialised with these men. These were men in whom he was heavily invested. And at the end of the story, as you know, Jesus goes through a little bit of a hard time. And just before he goes through his hard time, he gets an inkling that his friends, the people whom he's lived with and travelled with, the people whom he's invested in for the past 3 years, he gets a feeling that those people are not going to be there for him. By the way, when you go through something, you get surprised. You get surprised by the people who are there for you. You discover friends you didn't know you had. And you also get surprised by the people who aren't there for you. You lose friends that you thought you once had, just so you know. So Jesus in his gut gets this feeling that these men whom he is close with are not going to be there for him when push comes to shove. And so he sits them down and he has a very forthright conversation. He says, guys, look, I know we're close. I like you, you like me, we've been through a lot of things together, and I know you mean well, but I get the sense that when I go through what I'm about to go through, you are not going to be there for me. I get the sense that when I need you to be reliable, you're going to be unreliable. At this point, Peter, the leader of the group, stands up and says, no way, never. Even if everyone falls away on account of you, I never will. Even if I have to die with you, I'll never disown you. And all the other disciples said the same thing. So from the inside of the circle, you have all these promises being made. I'll be there for you. You can count on me. Don't worry. I won't let you down. That'll never happen. And at this point of the story, I suspect that Jesus' story has some resonance with your story, because at some point or other, you too were given promises from the people on the inside of your circle. And at this point, Jesus felt how you felt when you heard those promises. He's encouraged. He's strengthened. He feels better. He accepts at face value the promises that are being made to him, which is what we do. It's one of our beautiful human flaws, I think. It doesn't matter how many times that person has let you down in the past. When they make you a promise, you tend to believe it because you want to believe it. You need to believe it. You need to believe that that person in whom you are so heavily invested is going to be true to their word. And so you refuse to believe that what they've done once, they will do again. And so Jesus, in this frame of mind, goes with his friends to a place called Gethsemane. And he says to his friends, okay, sit here. Wait a while. I'm going to go and pray. My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death, so stay here and keep watch with me. In other words, all right, you've said that you're going to be here for me. I accept that, so be here for me. I'm going through a thing right now. Not doing well. My head isn't a good place. I'm having a little bit of a meltdown, and all I need is for you to just sit here with me while I go through it. Do you ever feel that you need someone just to sit there with you while you're going through it? If you do, Jesus knows exactly what that's like. Now, what I find instructive about this is that when Jesus was dealing with the people on the inside of his circle, he was always very clear about what he expected. For example, on previous occasions, Jesus said, if you're going to be on the inside of my circle, there are certain standards. For example, you have to forgive your enemies. You have to refuse yourself the luxury of hatred. You have to be poor in spirit and pure in heart. Do you know what I mean? Jesus had certain expectations, and he was always very clear about letting the people on the inside of his circle know what those expectations were, and he does the same thing here. Having listened to the promises of his friends, he then says, here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to be with me. I'd like you to stay with me. I'd like you to be loyal to me in this moment. It's a very clear expectation. Very clear communication. No mystery. Now, if you're taking notes, here's something that you might want to write down. I don't want to oversell this, because this is only page 3 of my talk, and I'd quite like you to listen to the end. But if you write this down and you understand it, I think it will make your life better. It will make a huge difference in all your relationships, the ones you have with your colleagues, your subordinates, your partner, your children. Okay, are you ready? Pens in hand, in the dark. You cannot expect what you do not express. Say it with me. You cannot expect what you do not express. Of all the amazing things that we human beings are capable of, the ability to read minds is not among them. Your husband, ladies, is not able to read your mind. Your wife is not able to tap into her powers of extrasensory perception and figure out all the things that you'd like her to do for you. And one of the huge improvements that we can make to all our relationships is just to simply begin expressing some of the things that we expect. Remember, one of the core values here at LifePoint is that in this church, you're going to be encouraged to be all you can be. And this simple thing that I'm encouraging you to do now can make such a huge difference in your relationships. Have clear conversations about some of your expectations. Express what you expect. In March, I'm going to do a series called Not So Great Expectations. And in that series, we're going to be talking a little bit about the gap that exists between some of the things we expected in life and, well, the life we got. And I think that some of the greatest frustrations in life have to do with this gap between not getting what we expected. And we can do ourselves such a huge favour in life by just communicating. Tell them what you want. Tell them what you're in it for inside the circle. It's your circle. You have that right. There's going to be some interesting conversations at the lunch table. I hope. Now, when I say that we should express what we expect, I'm not saying that nagging is a good idea. Because the Bible says that nagging is a bad idea. And the Bible is right. How many of you like being nagged? Some of the ladies have a really shocked look on their face right now. Really? How many of you find that when someone nags you, it gets the best out of you? The Jesus who expected things from his friends was always careful to celebrate things about his friends. For example, he said to Peter, "Hey, you're a rock. You're not a flaky guy and everyone else. You're a solid guy. You're a rock." And he goes up to these other people and says, "I'd like you to follow me." And no. We swear. We laugh at fart jokes. We're not good people. No. You're fishers of men. That's why, I see more in you. And I mention that as a note of caution. Because if we spend a lot of time telling people what they're doing wrong and very little time telling them what they're doing right, they will very quickly go deaf and become entrenched in whatever behaviour it is we don't like. In that regard, we human beings are a little bit like dogs. The behaviour that gets rewarded is repeated. At the end of the day, we're all just looking for cookies. For example, let's say it's your day off work and you decide on your day off work you're going to clean the house. I mean clean the house, like deep clean, like really get into the nooks and crannies and spick and span. And you spend all day at it because your partner's been letting things go lately. And your partner comes home. And when your partner walks in the door, they make a sarcastic comment like, "Oh, so you finally figured out where the vacuum cleaner is." Or rather than noticing all the huge amount of things you have done, they notice the one little thing you didn't do or got wrong. Like, you don't put unrecyclable garbage in the recyclable garbage container, you idiot. Like, how do you feel in that moment? Does that get the best out of you? Does that make you inclined to repeat the behaviour of that day? No. How much better would it be if your partner said, "Thank you so much for doing that. Can't tell you what that means to me. It makes such a big difference." That little reward makes the behaviour far more likely to be repeated. What gets rewarded gets repeated. Anyway, that was a long detour caused by Jesus setting clear expectations. Back to the story. A wee bit later, Jesus gets arrested and the cops take him to a person called the high priest. And then we're told something interesting. The text says that Peter followed at a distance. Now the phrase "at a distance" is very interesting because only an hour or so earlier, Peter has affirmed quite strongly his closeness to Jesus. Only a few hours earlier, he said, "Jesus, I'll be there for you. You can count on me. I'll never let you down." And I think that when Peter said that, he meant it. Because he said it on the basis of having successfully been close to Jesus for the previous 3 years. And just as you and I, when we look into our future, we don't see failure. We don't see us breaking our word and being unreliable to the people who need us to be reliable. So too Peter, when he looked into his future, didn't see himself being distant to Jesus only a few hours down the road. Remember week 1 of this series. Coping with people who suck begins with the realization that we suck too. Talking about unreliable people who hurt us must include an acknowledgement that we are unreliable as well and have within our own humanity the dark seeds of our own destruction. And for some of us, this talk about being let down and hurt is a painful reminder that we were the ones who did the letting down. We were the ones who did the hurting. More on that at the end. So then we find Jesus in court. A strange place for Jesus to be. And the court is called the Sanhedrin, and the Sanhedrin, as you perhaps know, were the political and the religious leaders of Israel during Jesus' day. They worked with the Romans. They were a buffer between the Romanness of the Romans and the Jewishness of the Jews. And I spent a little bit of time this week figuring out what the Jewish court was like, and I learned 3 very interesting things. Thing number 1, in the court where Jesus is, innocence is assumed. So just like in our legal system, a person was innocent until they were proven guilty. Thing number 2, a Jewish trial had to last more than 1 day. The reason for that apparently was to ensure that things weren't rushed through the legal system. Judges always had to consider the merits and the demerits of the case against you. And thing number 3, a charge had to be brought by at least 2 credible witnesses whose evidence had to concur. So if you're in trouble, if you get accused of something in the ancient world and you go to court, this court is a good one to go to. Because the judges have a presumption of innocence. They're not going to throw down a rash verdict. They're going to think about it for at least a day. And they're not going to take somebody's word against yours. There needs to be solid, credible evidence. So the only way in Jesus' day you're going to be found guilty of something is if you actually are guilty of something. So this makes this story slightly unusual, because almost all of its details record a gross violation of that procedure. Where innocence was supposed to be assumed, here it isn't. Where normally a trial has to last more than a day, here it barely lasts a few hours. Where normally a charge has to be corroborated, confirmed by witnesses, here people openly admit that they're lying. So it seems in this case the court isn't convening with justice on its mind. It is, in the words of Matthew, looking for a way to find him guilty. Hence verse 59 we read, "The whole Sanhedrin were looking for false evidence against Jesus so they could put him to death." The word looking that Matthew uses here is one of those words that he always uses negatively. It means I'm examining you completely without the benefit of the doubt. In fact, I'm examining you with the purpose of finding something malignant about you that I can then use against you. I believe nothing good about you. I'm out to get you. And then we're told that some stood up and gave false testimony against Jesus. So there's people there lying about him. And then we're told that they condemned him as worthy of death. They began to spit at him. They blindfolded him, struck him with their fists, and said, "Prophesy, tell us who hit you with your blindfold on." So here you have Jesus, right? He's been arrested. He's in court. There are people in court telling lies about him. The officers of the court are playing some macabre game with a blindfold and fists, and they're hitting him and spitting at him. Now, when you get arrested, as many of you know, it's stressful. When you go to court, it's stressful. When people tell lies about you, it's stressful. When people attack you and humiliate you, it's stressful. The kind of stressful that makes you think, if only I had some friends. If only I had the kind of friends who just a few hours ago promised that come hell or high water, come life or death, they would be there for me. That I could count on them. That they'd never let me down. If only I had... Oh, wait a minute. I do have friends like that. Where are they? Where are all the people on the inside of my circle who just an hour or two ago said that they'd never leave me? Which brings us back to Peter the reliable. Now, Peter was sitting where? He used to be inside, making all these promises that Jesus could count on him. Now he's outside. A servant girl came up to him and said, "You were with Jesus of Galilee." But Peter denied it and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." I bet that wasn't in his day planner. I bet when he got out of bed that morning and looked at his agenda, towards the end of the day, I bet it didn't say, "I will deny that I even know Jesus." Just like some of the unreliabilities that we get into, we don't plan for them, it just happens. We don't see them coming. Have you ever had the experience of walking around a mall or a store and somebody that you know just blanks you? They just ignore you, they pretend you're invisible. You don't exist. If I've ever done to you that, I'm very sorry. It's because I'm dull that way. But have you ever had someone do that to you on purpose? It hurts, doesn't it? I don't matter. I don't exist. This is how Jesus must feel at this point. My best friend doesn't know me. Then Peter went out to the gateway where another girl saw him and said to the people there, "This fellow," the girl was English. All right, forget it. "This fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth," and he denied it again with an oath, "I don't know the man." The word "deny" in this sentence is written in the imperfect tense, and what it means is Peter isn't just saying, "I don't know Jesus." He's going on about it, and there's F words involved. Right? He's going on and on extensively with a bleeper involved. "I don't know Jesus." Next sentence. "After a little while, those standing near said to Peter, 'Come on, surely you are one of them, for your accent gives you away.'" The languages of the Near East have a throaty thing going on. They're a bit like Klingon. And that was a test to see how many geeks there were in the church. Quite a few. I knew anyway, it's just fun to know. And so apparently people who lived in the north of Israel had this deficiency in their throat that they couldn't pronounce some of the sounds, and so when they spoke Aramaic or Hebrew, their voice betrayed their origins. Just like when I'm talking to you, you can tell where I come from, right? It was obvious. So because this man has a Galilean accent, the people there, well, the Jesus movement is a Galilean movement, so you must be one of those people as well. Then the bleeper gets involved again. Peter begins to let all sorts of stuff come out of his mouth and say, curses and swearing. "I don't know the man." I'm sorry, did you say the man? Surely you know his name. Surely you can bring yourself to speak his name. Is that where we're at now? It's the man. Two things to say here, both of which impinge upon our subject matter about dealing with unreliable people. First of all, Jesus never let the behaviour of others influence the way that he behaved. Think about it. On one side of the room, you've got Jesus. And he's in the early stages of dying, among other things, for Peter and for Peter's sin. And yet, on the other side of the room, you've got Peter saying, I don't know Jesus. I don't know the man. I'm telling you, I don't know him. Never met him. Never heard of him. And if I was Jesus, on this side of the room, dying for this man who now says he doesn't know me, I'd be like, sod this. I'm not dying for him. He can't even bring himself to speak my name. Can't even bring himself to admit that he knows me, and here I'm doing all this stuff for him. No way. I'm out of here. But Jesus never let other people's behaviour determine his behaviour. And I mention this because this is a virtue that few of us have that I suppose all of us need. The unreliability of another person doesn't give you a pass for unreliabilities of your own. Other people letting you down doesn't give you the right to let them down. Other people slacking off doesn't give you the right to slack off. Your behaviour must be determined by what you know is right. By your moral code. By your sense of right and wrong. If everyone lets their behaviour be determined by the bad behaviour of others, pretty soon it's all going to go down and down and down. Second thing to say, slightly more painfully, sooner or later in this life you have to come to terms with the awful truth that you were the one whose word could not be trusted. You were the one whose actions brought pain and suffering into the lives of those you love. You were the one who brought darkness and shadows into your story and the story of your family. We're told at the end of this story that immediately the rooster crowed the second time. Then Peter remembered the word Jesus had spoken to him. Before the rooster crows twice, you will disown me 3 times. And he broke down and he wept. He felt guilty. A sober reminder, I think, that however bold our affirmations of reliability are, they are no guarantee against unreliability. We are all capable of this, and only the young and the arrogant would suggest otherwise. And so what to make of this? You, my friend, who regrets so much, and who feel so much guilt, and so much shame. Have a look at this. Thanks for the tea, by the way. This is the church. It's a church in Jerusalem. And it's called the Church of St. Peter Cockcrow. So let me see if I get this right, which of course I do. In the 6th century, the early church built this church on the site of Peter's most shameful moment. And they didn't try and pretty it up. They didn't try and kind of edit the story. They put the story in the name of the church. This is the church of St. Peter Cockcrow. This is the church where one of our great leaders messed up and got it all so badly wrong. How do you like that? How amazingly Christian is that? The church of the sleazy motel where you cheated on your partner. The church of the bar where you spent your family's money. The church of the boardroom where you did a dishonest deal and shafted your partner out of money he was due. Cool. Not cool as in the nasty stuff's okay, but cool as in this is our faith. There are no perfect people. We've all made mistakes. And in those mistakes we find the kindness and the mercy and the love of a God who sent his Son to die for those very mistakes. And so the attitude of the early church was therefore, why pretend the mistakes didn't exist? Why pretend that we're something we're not? Let's just be honest. Here's who our leader was. He denied he even knew Jesus, and now we're building a church on that very site, and we're going to call it that thing because God made it all okay in the end. In the Bible, we hear God say, I don't care how you act because it won't affect the way I act. I've decided to love you and forgive you and show you mercy. I've decided that regardless of your unfaithfulness towards me, I will be faithful to you. And nothing you do can or will detract from that. Where sin increases, the Bible says grace increases all the more. Nice end to a shameful story. Any questions on any of that before we go? Anything at all? Good, fantastic. Okay. Next week we're going to wrap this series up, and then the Sunday after that we're going to start a new series called The Gospel According to Duck Dynasty. It's going to be a brilliant series. We're going to be talking about family issues, a little bit about finance issues. We're going to be talking about how we can all simplify our lives and maybe make them a little less cumbersome than they currently are. So Gospel According to Duck Dynasty. Duck Dynasty, I should say, I'm British. The week after next week we're going to wrap up this series. Let me pray and then we can all go. Heavenly Father, we admit again that we're not perfect people. We live with our partners imperfectly. We raise our children imperfectly. We work in the marketplace imperfectly. We ask that this week you will help us to be mindful of your word. Help us to be better husbands and better wives, better parents to our children, more honest and more diligent employees and business owners. Prosper everything we do, I ask. And above all, Father, I ask that as we do all that we can do, you, by your heavenly power, will do the things we cannot do. Make us mindful of your grace, of your mercy, of your forgiveness. Set straight paths before us. Bring success to our schemes and our plans. Bring enlightenment to our darkness. Bring healing to our pain. And in our troubled hearts and minds, we ask for your peace, your love, your mercy. Ask this of you in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks for coming. God bless you.